A little bit of insight into myself. I am a broke factory worker / content creator. So I have to donate. And I was donating plasma and I was reading this comic. I was kind of disturbing other people because I was laughing so hard, enjoying the hell out of this comic. So let's get right into it. My name is Dorian. This is SEM Comics, and we are continuing our coverage of Fall Effects with X-Men number 27. So the story starts off at an Orcus facility. To be exact, it is the Henry Peter Gyrick Re-Education Center on Randall's Island in New York City. Now some of you, not all of you, just some of you might be saying, who the hell is Henry Peter Gyrick? Henry Gyrick is most famous for starting a program called Project Wide Awake. That program was to address the concerns of the growing mutant population in America. Now, if you want to find out more about Henry Peter Gyrick, you should check out Rob from Comics Explained, or you should check out Ernie from Blur Without Fear. They're pretty much experts on the subject. Now, obviously, Kitty is not a fan, and she's thinking about all the different ways she could destroy that statue once all this Orcus stuff is said and done. But her main mission, given by Sync, is to find out how many mutants are actually in here, and more importantly, which mutants are in here. Now, Kitty has been around for a long time, so she is not easily surprised. But like Kevin Hart would say,
you're gonna learn today.
And on the next page, we see that it is the Juggernaut. Now, if you're watching this video, 9 times out of 10, you are a fan of the X-Men and you know what happened at the Hellfire Gala. For those of you who might not know, Juggernaut got the bejesus beat out of him by Nimrod. I mean, beat down. Now, I will say this. He did last the longest out of all of the new X-Men, because everybody else who just got selected to be on the team was probably dead in 2 seconds. Like literally 2 seconds. Now, the reason why he's alive is because of the Crimson Gem of Sidorak that makes him the Juggernaut. Now, I know the gem is no longer inside his body. I believe it's either prolonged exposure to the gem is the reason why it's in his bloodstream, or if it liquefied and went into his bloodstream. I'm not sure. I know it's no longer inside his body. It's in his bloodstream, which is still technically inside his body. I understand that, but it's not like a gem sitting in his chest or anything like that anymore. If you want to find out why it's in his bloodstream or what happened, again, those 2 channels I referred to earlier, they're a good source to find out what happened. Now, obviously, Kitty wants to break him out, but Juggernaut lets her know that, hey, this aluminium collars around my neck is a noose around my neighbor who's behind the other wall. So really, I can't do anything right now. And when she phases through the wall, she finds out that his neighbor is Cyclops with his eyes sewn shut. Now, Kitty wants to free him too, but as she looks a little bit closer, she sees that he is booby trapped as well. So she phases through the other side of the wall to let Juggernaut know that it's Cyclops and that he's also booby trapped too. And Juggernaut's like, well, I'm glad I ain't doing my impersonation of the Kool-Aid Man.
Hey, Kool-Aid!
Yeah.
So then Kitty's like, yeah, he's on a dead man switch. He's pretty much a living trigger for some kind of bomb. So then Juggernaut's like, you ain't gonna let us ride in here, are you? Then Kitty's like, no. She takes off his collar and is like, I need you to buy me some time. Break out tomorrow. And then Juggernaut's like, why tomorrow? And Kitty's like, because I need to continue my head count. And he goes, oh, okay. And then he's like, is anybody else alive? And she's like, I'll tell you once we're all out of here. We're all X-Men now. Resist. So now that's like part 1 of this comic. Yes, there's 2 parts. And this is my favorite part that we're about to go over right now. And since this is part 1 and part 2, we're also going to change up the music. So now our story cuts to the Morlock tunnels, ironically where the first mutant massacre took place. And our heroes are discussing how they're going to convince Reed Richards into letting them into his mind so that they can try to recover what Professor Xavier took out of his mind. So if you're not familiar with the situation, let me put you up on game. So hopefully if you're watching the channel, you know who Franklin Richard is. If you don't, that is Reed and Sue Richards' son. And Franklin was considered a mutant, even though in the story that we're talking about right now says that he's not, which I think is stupid, but I digress. So because he was a mutant, Reed Richards has been massing his powers forever now, because Franklin Richards' powers is astronomical. I mean, he scares Galactus. He scares a cosmic entity. So that tells you right there that Franklin Richards, like Wu-Tang Clan, ain't none with. So in the story where we find out Franklin Richards is not a mutant, which I think is stupid, Professor Xavier and Magneto go into Reed Richards' mind and removes the part where Reed knows how to mask the X gene. Now, why did they do it? Nobody knows. Magneto's dead and Professor Xavier's going crazy on Krakoa. But knowing that knowledge can come in handy right now, especially since they're being hunted down by just about everybody in the world. And everybody's going to go talk to the Fantastic Four, except for one silver-skinned lady named Rasputin 4. She is also mother. There ain't no other way saying it. So if you happen to skip a little thing called Sins of Sinister, again, let me put you on game. So Rasputin 4 is a 5-gift chimera made by Mr. Sinister himself. She is a mixture of Colossus, for obviously his skin and his strength, Kid Omega for his telepathy and telekinesis, Kitty Pryde for her phasing ability. Even though she has Kitty's ability, she still can't pass through the gates like she does right now. Wolverine, the Lord Kidney version, for her healing ability and her longevity. Because if you read Sins of Sinister, then you would know that Rasputin 4 has been living for almost 1,000 years. Forget I was going ahead and say it. There's a link to the playlist in the description. And Eunice for his force field ability. And he is old character. Trust me, I had to wipe the mothballs off of this one. And that is how you make a Rasputin 4. The reason why she's named 4 is because Sinister failed 3 times. And they are headed to Arizona because that's where Ben Grimm's family, like, estate is at, or they own like a vacation home down there. The reason why they're staying there, for one, they're trying to lay low. For two, the Baxter building just disappeared. So along with their kids and probably a lot of other people. So right now the Fantastic Four isn't in the best of light. And did I mention they're headed there in a old Lincoln that Rasputin 4 found and just ripped out the engine and decided to use a telekinesis to fly there? Yeah, that happened. So once they land, they're like, all right, let's go be diplomatic and let's go talk to the Fantastic Four, because they're our friends. Rasputin 4 did not get that memo. I mean, she comes in like a full-blooded communist. And I quote, "Compliance is not a prerequisite for success. If there is information we need here, then we will have it." She's pretty much saying,
By any means necessary.
and Ben Grimm overhears this and he's like, "I don't like how you sounded right now." And she's like, "Now be out my way, Gollum." And he's like, "Hold on, time out. Who are you?" And he puts his hands on her and she's like, "Watch your hands," and knocks the hell out of Ben Grimm. I mean, he goes flying and the only thing you see is his hat and fishing pole. And Talon's like, "Damn it." And Sync, "You might as well just throw in your favorite expletive." That's what he said. And Rasputin 4 is like, "I guess we attracted their defenses," because she don't know who the Fantastic Four are. So Talon and Sync is running over to check on Ben. And then Sync tells Miss Marvel to babysit Rasputin because, yeah, she can do that. And then Rasputin looks up and she's like, "Matters are escalating. They do not need to. I simply need information." And she's telling that to Johnny Storm. So Rasputin 4 is like, "Have you seen my skin? You can't burn me." And then Johnny Storm's like, "Look, I get under everybody's skin. Don't underestimate me." And he's like, "Did you steal that sword from Magic?" And then Rasputin 4 is like, "Enough prattle." Prattle? Okay. And she swings at Johnny and Johnny's like, "Look, you're not going to touch me." And then Rasputin 4 is like, "I don't need to." And she says, "Sleep." He falls to the ground. That's that Kid Omega telepathy right there. Now, you could tell the Fantastic Four have been around for a very long time and they've seen everything because Reed and Sue Richards are casually walking outside to see what the hell's going on. I mean, Reed is still eating his chips. So Reed's like, "I could have swore I heard Ben get punched." And then Sue's like, "Yeah, you never get used to that sound. It's like rocks being driven into meat," which when you say it like that, that does sound disturbing. So Sue turns invisible and says, "I'm gonna take a look around." And Reed's like, "Me too." And he goes, "Hey phone, scan the area," and it just starts floating in the air because, it's Reed Richards' phone. And when it gets to Rasputin 4, it can already tell that it's made of 4 different things, even though it missed one, which we'll see here in a minute. So Miss Marvel is trying to stop Rasputin 4, which, again, good luck with that. And Rasputin 4 jumps right in front of Reed Richards, and Reed Richards is like, "You're either a creation of Sinister, or Beast is more further gone than I've ever thought, which that statement, he ain't never lied. And Rasputin 4 is like, Mr. Fantastic? And Reed Richards is like, I am, and I hope for your sake my family's unharmed. So then Rasputin 4 is like, we don't seek conflict. Yeah, okay. We require information what X and Magneto took from you. And it reads like, I'm figuring out here. You know, from time to time I noodle around with it, but I don't need your help. And Rasputin 4 is like, you are misunderstanding. We don't care if you retain it. We require it. Again.
By any means necessary.
And then the force field appears around Rasputin 4, and Reed Richards is like, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. My mind was entered without my consent, and they ain't never happening again. So Reed's talking to Susan, and he's like, let's keep our guard up. She is a mixture of 4, possibly 5 different mutants. And then she just phases right through the force field, and she goes 5. And Reed's like, you have Kitty's phasing ability too, huh? So then Rasputin 4 again is like, I'm not seeking conflict. But then Ben Grimm is running up behind her, and he's like, I normally don't hit dames, but, and all we see is her fist and him go flying with some rocks left behind. Finally, Miss Marvel gets in between them and is like, we are all friends. We are friends right now. But Rasputin 4 is like, I don't understand. Then why did X go and steal something from his mind? And Susan's like, look, Reed saved the world twice last week. And it reads like it was 3 times, but who's counting? But then he's like, but that's ancient history to this young woman now, isn't it? So it reads like, look, there's been enough mistrust. That's how we got here in the first place. Why don't we start trusting each other? And he's like, all right, I'll let you read my mind, but Susan's going to be right next to me. And Susan's like, yep. And if you do anything crazy, I will go ahead and I will give you a brain aneurysm by putting a force field in that brain of yours. And then Rasputin 4 is like, I like your wife. So Rasputin puts on Cerebral and they go into Reed's mind and they see Professor Xavier and Magneto standing there. Professor Xavier is pretty much saying, I want you to remember, this is not a game to us. This is our right to survive. And there's a big old cavernous hole where the memory used to be at. So Rasputin 4 takes off the helmet and goes, it's a dead end. It's impossible. The secret of the Fantastic Four masking the mutant gene has been removed, and quite thoroughly. And then Ms. Marvel's like, it's funny you use that word mask, because that's what Charles said to me during the night of the attack. He says that my Terrigenesis masks my mutant power. And then Reed just thinks to himself, and he starts laughing. He's like, that's it, Terrigenesis. Now, for those of you who don't know, Terrigenesis is what the Inhumans go through to get their crazy powers. Ms. Marvel is an Inhuman, so I'm gonna let Reed explain the rest. So Reed goes, in high doses, the Terrigenesis can hurt or even kill mutants. Now, how's he know? In Humans vs. X-Men, everybody found out the hard way. But in low trigger doses, it can camouflage the X gene. So then pretty much they got what they came for. Reed is talking to Ms. Marvel and is like, we're really happy the X-Men got to you because you dying was a tragedy, and I'm glad they was able to right that wrong. And it reads like, if you ever want me to help you find out what your mutant powers is, just let me know. And Ms. Marvel's like, okay, but I'm gonna take it slow. So the Rasputin 4 got the resting face on, and she's like, please get into the vehicle. There is no further purpose in being here, because she's a... And then they take off. So the Ben's like, I want a rematch. I'm thinking to myself, no you don't. And Johnny's like, I'm not a fan. Then Sue's like, look, they've been through a lot, just like we have. And let's not forget, we all have an Orcus problem. And then the book ends with the Simpleton talking to Firestar. And he's like, pretty much that Nimrod had to curve starve the Juggernaut again. And he feels like that there is no way to pacify the Juggernaut. So his solution is to do an autopsy, because like I said, Juggernaut got curve stomped, and remove the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak and put it into himself. Now little does he know, there is no Crimson Gem of Cyttorak. So I guess the Simpleton's gonna have to do a blood transfusion or whatever. Either way it goes, Firestar damn near chokes her on the food, and she has that look on her face like, oh.